So this video is about how to make a Playblast of your animation. So here's a bit of animation we've got using the Luxo lamp hop. So I'm reasonably happy with my animation here. I think it's looking okay. But bear in mind that when you press play in the perspective window or in your camera window or whatever it is that you've created, you very rarely in Maya get real-time playback, even now as computers get faster and better and stronger. We still tend not to get accurate real-time playback, and the reason for that is that these rigs, or certainly production rigs, are very heavy. They are heavy, they are complex, and Maya will not play them back in real time because there's just simply too much data there for the processors to handle. So what we do is create a Playblast, and what a Playblast really is a desktop render of your work. You are in fact making a batch render of your work, but you're doing it at a simple basic level, and you're not rendering out final frames. So let's just go ahead and say that we want to test our animation from frame 101 to frame 141 in this shot. And we're going to go to Window, Playblast, and then in order to do this, we're going to open up the options box. Actually, before we make the Playblast, we're going to turn off all the stuff that we don't want. So I'm going to go to Show here, and I'm going to go to Show None. That will turn everything off. And then I just turn on the stuff I want, which is to say NURBS surfaces, if there are NURBS in there, which there are in this particular rig, and also polygons. We know we're going to want to see the polygons. We're going to want to see the geometry. Do we want the grid? We might well not want the grid, so we can go to Show Grid. I hope you can see that on your screen. Actually, if I just tear this off and move it up, you'll be able to see it. Show Grid, and I'll just turn the grid off, and now the grid will disappear. So, and I'll just click that off. So now, that's our animation. That's all we want to see. We don't want all the other bits and pieces. We just want to see the geometry. And now we go to Window, Playblast, and open up that options box there. And what this will do is we can decide, do we want it in the time slider? That's right, 101 to 141, that's our time slider, so that's correct. Do we want to show ornaments? Ornaments are the information on the screen. So for example, here in the perspective view, under display, heads-up display, I've got current frame turned on. And I highly recommend that whenever you're making a Playblast, you turn on current frame. And the reason for that is that that really helps me when I'm watching your work to see what's going on at what frame number. If you don't have that on, you won't have the numbers here, and I won't be able to give you such specific feedback. So it's a good idea to have current frame turned on, and it gives you that little number there. So showing ornaments will leave that frame number on. Now the format, this is important. We're going to select QuickTimes. Now if you don't see the QuickTime option there, make sure you download QuickTime for your computer. I also recommend that you buy QuickTime Pro. It's a very handy little piece of software. It only costs $30, so it's pretty cheap. I use it all the time. QuickTime Pro is a really useful little bit of software. You can use it to, for example, you can open up a video and export it. You can change the aspect ratios. You can export sound files. You can export as different file types. Very, very useful for that kind of thing. Display size from window. So we're just gonna. That just means it's gonna render out that size, the window that we've got there. And save to file will save a copy to our images folder, which we might or might not want to do. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to click Playblast now, and that should. Okay, so it has already saved a file there, and I'm going to ask it to overwrite, and yes, we can overwrite it. And now it's going to run through that, and it should automatically open up a version of the animation, and you can then just press play and watch the real-time playback. And if you go to Control L in QuickTime, you can loop it endlessly. Now what's so great about QuickTime is we can change it to here from the time to frame number, so it will give us the frame numbers as they are recorded, although we've already got them burned here on the screen thanks to turning them on in the way I just showed you. But the nice thing about QuickTime is we can do this. We can scrub from one frame to another, and not very many playback I'll say that again. Not very many video playback tools will enable you to do this, and this is very, very useful for our purposes, and that's why I personally like to use QuickTime. Now, if for some reason this video doesn't show up, you're going to have to go and find it in the images folder. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my screen. You can't see this, but I'm clicking on the Start menu on the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, and I'm going to navigate through Documents to my Maya folders. I'm going to double click on that. I'm now going to double click on Projects, and I'm going to go to the Luxo lamp pop, which is the project that we're in. And assuming we've set our project correctly, and you should always set your project when you start a new piece of animation, we should find the QuickTime there in the Movies folder. So I double click on Movies, and there it is. Now, we can then right click on that and go to Open with QuickTime Player, and that will open it up. But better yet, to make sure that it does it every time, we go to Choose Default Program here, click on that, and then click here, this little button, always use the selected program to open this kind of file. So we make sure that we've got QuickTime Player selected up here, make sure that this little box is ticked, and then go OK. And what that will do is it will make sure that you're always using QuickTime, so you don't have to go through this process every time you make a Playblast. And there it is. So now if I close that out and close that out, now if I go, let's say we want to do one in the perspective, in the orthographic side view, and I'll just hit the spacebar so we get a bigger window, and that will make our Playblast bigger. If I now go to Window, Playblast, and just click on it, let me just cancel that out. If I go to Window, Playblast, Options box, we don't really need to save it to file. It's not really necessary. The whole point of a Playblast is you're just testing your work. You don't really need to save the test. So now I'll click on Playblast, and it's now going to make a bigger image, and hopefully that should come up any second now, and there it is. So now we're getting a nice big window. So actually, when you make a Playblast, you probably want to go ahead and hit the spacebar like we just did. Let's say we want the orthographic side view, spacebar, and then make the Playblast. Or if we want a perspective view, spacebar, and then make a Playblast, so that you get a nice big window. Because the Playblast will only render out the image size that you've given it. So the bigger the image on your screen, the better quality your Playblast will be. And in general, as a general rule, when you're showing your work to a director or an animation supervisor or whoever it is, you always want it to be as high quality as you can make it. I mean, not insanely, you don't want sort of hundreds of gigabytes, but you want a nice high quality file. And this is something I learned at Blue Sky Studios, that if you do a nice high-res render, it's easier to get your work approved. And that is very important for an animator. Getting your work approved is very important. So you always want to do a nice high-res Playblast whenever you can. So that is a general introduction to Playblasting your work. My general advice to you is Playblast often. You should test your work often, and when you make a Playblast and you like what you've done, go ahead and save your work. If you make a Playblast and you don't like what you've done, maybe go ahead and make some tweaks, and then save it when you get to a better stopping off point.